Good morning, YouTube, BookTube. This is Johnny. This is a Monday Reads. It is October the 24th, 2022. It is a Monday. It is 6:45 in the morning. I got up at 5:45. And I was laying there and I said, I might as well just get up and face the day. It's supposed to be another sunny day. And yeah, so then I got up, made a fresh pot of coffee, had a bowl of oatmeal, got out my diary. I haven't written anything yet. I'm on page 1005. But I thought what I would do in this video, since this is probably the last morning that Carol will not be here, and I can make a video this morning, because she gets in Grand Rapids at 7 o'clock tonight, flying in from Denver. I just thought I'd just show you what I'll be reading throughout the week. And of course I'm always reading the Bible. This Bible's getting pretty beat up, but this is a New King James Version. I usually read the King James or the New King James. So in the mornings, like this morning, I was going to read. Well, yesterday I read volume 1. I didn't read this whole volume. I've been reading. There are discourses in here. And I finished reading the discourse on the existence of God, and discourse 2 is on practical atheism. So this is Stephen Charnock, The Existence and Attributes of God. This is a 17th century Puritan classic, edited by Mark Jones. I have an older edition I showed you, published by Baker Bookhouse back in the 80s. This just came out. This is a 2-volume work, and I read that yesterday on practical atheism. And the text he based the discourse on is in Psalm 14 verse 1. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. So I read that, and I got this in the mail last week, and I've been reading this. The End of Interpretation, Reclaiming the Priority of Ecclesial Exegesis by Reno. So I read this yesterday too. And then I've been reading, I got this book from my psychologist. He is on his pastoral search committee in his church. And this was by his desk. He said he had 2 copies of it, so I could take one and read it. Chasing After When, A Pastor's Life by Douglas J. Brouwer. I'm almost done with this. And then I've been reading volume 3 of Denis, the Carthusian, medieval Carthusian monk. The Quid, Gloriaris, Malitia, the commentary on Davidic Psalms, volume 3, Psalms 51 to 75. I am now, next I'll be on this week on Psalm 68. This is volume 3. It's a projected 6 volumes. And so I've been reading through the Psalms for a couple of years. I read volumes 1 and volume 2. Before that, I had read the Reformation commentary on the Psalms. But now I'm reading the Reformation commentary on 2 Corinthians in the New Testament. And I'm almost done with that. I'm on chapter 12 of 2 Corinthians. And there's only 13 chapters. So I'm almost done. I got a couple more pages. And then I told you, I'm probably going to stick with just reading Denis and the Carthusian on the Psalms, and then I'll just read Stephen Charnock on the attributes, on the existence and attributes of God. And of course, I'll read other things probably. Well, like I'm reading that book on the end of interpretation, but I'm almost done with this. I only got maybe 30 pages left in this. So that's what I'm reading in the mornings up until noon, and then I'll be reading. I'm almost done with Victor Serge, Men in Prison, translated out of the French by Richard Greeman. This is really a great little work. It's almost kind of, it was written, well, Victor Serge, it's kind of, is it a novel or autobiographical? But he was in a French prison right during, in the back of the book is a timeline of his life. He was born in 1890 in Brussels to a family of sympathizers with the narcotic terrorism who had fled from Russia after the assassination of Alexander II. And then but he says here, in 1912, Serge is implicated in the trial of anarchist outlaws known as the Bon Not Gang. Despite arrest, he refuses to turn informer and is sentenced to 5 years in it's basically a prison. 3 of his co-defenders were guillotined. So he was in prison from 1912 and he was released in 1917. And he mentions, as I was reading this yesterday, he was in prison as the First World War was raging around them. So it's very interesting to read how that was, that experience. But this is really worth reading. And then I've been reading, I'm almost done with this one, Memoirs Beyond the Grave, 1768 to 1800 by Chateaubriand. I can't pronounce the name, but both these works have been really a great read and very moving at times. Very, it's just great. Both these books are just really worth reading. I've really enjoyed them. Now, when I finished these two, a book I bought maybe a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I've shown this in my videos, but there's a guy I've been watching in BookTube called The Diary of a Disappointed Man, something like that. And he is working on his PhD in English literature in Taiwan. I've been watching his videos, and he mentioned in one of below his videos, a writer I never heard of. And his name was Patrick Hamilton. And I looked him up, and this is a book that was published by the New York Review Books, 20,000 Streets Under the Sky by Patrick Hamilton. So I bought this because I love these New York, I'm using those words again. I don't like using word love. Love to me is a very sacred word. I like reading these New York Review books. And so I bought this one, and this is a trilogy. It's called the New 20,000 Streets Under the Sky, a London trilogy. And then you have The Midnight Bell, The Siege of Pleasure, and The Plains of Cement. So this was first published in let me see here. I think it was published it doesn't say when this was. I think it was published in the 19th. Yeah, The Midnight Bell, first published in 1929. That's the first one. So it's around the 30s in London, in England. patch. So I might start reading this. I got this book in the mail last week. I was looking at a video, a booktuber, and he mentioned this book. He did a review of it, and I didn't have it in my George Orwell collection, which I thought I did. So I bought a copy, The Road to Wingen Pier by George Orwell. I might start reading this. I'm not really totally sure. I'm still reading the I Want to Keep Smashing Myself Until I'm Whole. An Anus Ganetti reader, edited with introduction by Joshua Colin. I'm still reading this. I still have it on my to be read pile. And there's a book I don't think I've shown in my videos that I've been reading at night before I go to bed. Is Patricia Highsmith, Her Diaries and Notebooks, 1941 to 1985, edited by Anna Van Plantea. Patricia Highsmith is known for her, I suppose she's like a literary mystery writer. She's no longer living, but she wrote the very famous Ripley series, Ripley Underwater, Ripley's Game, Ripley's Underground. She wrote, her primary publisher, I think it was a German. She died in Switzerland. Anyway, when they published her complete works, it was like 34 volumes. I have, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9 of her novels downstairs. I have 2 biographies on her, Patricia Highsmith. So this diary was going for $40, but then sometimes Amazon slices the price of a book. So I got it for $20. So I got that. So I've been reading that, Patricia Highsmith, Her Diaries and Notebooks, 1941 to 1995. Still reading I Want to Keep Smashing Myself Until I'm Whole, an Elias Ganetti reader. And I might read George Orwell, The Road to Wingen Pier. I might read 20,000 Streets Under the Sky by Patrick Hamilton. Get into this week. I'm almost done with Men in Prison by Victor Serge. Almost done with Memoirs from Beyond the Grave, 1768 to 1800. I have the second volume in this, but I was looking at it last night, and it's more historical about Napoleon Bonaparte and the, I don't know, I'm kind of not sure. I might give it a rest. And in the mornings I'm reading The End of Interpretation by R. Reno. I'm almost done with this. I definitely will keep reading Stephen Charnock on the existence and the attributes of God on practical atheism, which is a very long discourse. We'll keep reading the commentary on the Psalms by Denis and the Carthusian. I'm on Psalm 68, and I'm almost done with the Reformation commentary on 2 Corinthians in the New Testament. Almost done with Chasing After Wind, A Pastor's Life by Douglas Brouwer. So that's what I'm reading. I don't think I have anything coming in the mail this week. I did order this diary or a memoir, but for some reason I think it's lost in the mail. And I am getting another book on, it's on the pastoral ministry. It's on preaching and things like that. Even though I'm not a gospel minister or a teaching elder, I still like to read books on the gospel ministry. Once in a while, not always, but I read all kinds of things. Before I close, I was going to show you the music I've been listening to lately. I got in the mail last week the new Machine Head record of Kingdom and Crown. This is kind of like heavy rock metal. This is by Calexico. This is an older. They're kind of like from Tulsa, Arizona. Tulsa. It's kind of like Southwest kind of indie rock with it has Chicano kind of vibes in it. But Calexico, this is an older one, but I bought it by an MP3. This is the new Afghan Rigs, which I've shown, and this one is, I can't even read it. It's called How Do You Burn? The Afghan Wigs. This is kind of like blues rock. But I've always been into Afghan Wigs. Greg Doulis, he also started a band called the Twilight Singers, and he did a solo record with Mark Langdon, and the Archers of Loaf, new CD, Reason and Decline, Archers of Loaf. This is Lamb Chop, the Bible, which I really enjoyed. This I got in the mail last week. This is new Bill Cullian. I can't even pronounce that title of it. I'm not sure what that is supposed to be. But I got this in the mail. Bill, it's kind of like spoken word, kind of very mellow kind of music. It's like poetry. This is the new book. This is not a new one, but I really like the music of Paul Weller. This is Fat Pop. It's kind of like blues, R&B. This is the new Built to Spill. This is the indie rock. I've been in Built to Spill for over 20 years. This is the new one, Built to Spill, which is When the Wind Forgets Your Name. And this is Shearwater. Austin, Texas. This is like singer-songwriter, very mellow, very quiet, kind of. This is the Great Awakening. I have an older Shearwater CD coming in the mail today that I came across. Shearwater. I've been into Shearwater for I don't know, a long time. They come out of Austin, Texas. It's basically a singer-songwriter, very quiet, very reflective music. So that's the kind of music I listen to. I usually today I volunteer at the Book Nook, the library used bookstore, and these are the kind of CDs I take with me to listen to when I'm at the Book Nook. I don't take all of these. I'll probably take Built to Spill. I'll probably take something more reflective, Bill Culligan, and the Bible by Lamb Chop. Yeah, I did probably take Calexico, maybe some Bob Dylan, Van Morrison, Ryan Adams, Neil Young, people like that. So that's the music, that's the books, it's a Monday morning. It is now 7:03. One thing else, I wanted to qualify something or expand something I said about being a diary writer. Now, my diaries cover 44 years. I kept the year before I married Carol, and we've been married 43 years. So I have 44 years of diaries. And in those diaries, I've written about my marriage, the raising of our children, Caleb and Josiah and Bethany, and I wrote about being a father and being a husband and going to college and going to seminary, and but I don't really write about world events. Now I do mention like the war in Ukraine. I haven't even mentioned, I think, the recent hurricane in the Floridas. I don't think I've mentioned that, but I do mention in my diaries my marriage, Carol, being a grandfather, our grandchildren, but I primarily focus on what I'm reading and what I'm experiencing. But I love my children, I love my wife, I love my grandchildren, I love my daughter-in-law and my brother-in-law, and I have 2 daughter-in-laws, and I love they're all my family. So, but I don't write about them. I mention them, but I primarily write about my day-to-day life, but I don't really go into great detail about other things. Now, when we were raising our kids, we lived in Mississippi. I was going to seminary. We lived in Houston, Texas for 5 years when I was doing my internship, and the kids were in school and growing up. And then we moved to Holland 33 years ago, and they were in middle school, and they went to high school, and they went to college. So I write about those things, but I just don't go into detail. I just write very simplistically about day-to-day life over the last 43 years. My spiritual struggles, what I'm thinking, what I'm reading, what I'm dealing with. So yeah. But as far as world events, I don't write about in detail those things. It's basically I write about my life as a father, grandfather, as a Christian, being involved. I was involved in church life for 35 years. And I went to college and seminary, living in Mississippi, living in Texas, and just all the activities of raising children, being married, dealing with just life in this world. So yeah, my diaries are a lot more extensive and a lot more full of activities and things than just what I mentioned in my last video. So I just want to clarify that, because I'm not just wrapped up in myself. I don't want to give the impression I'm just imprisoned within my own ego. No, I'm very aware intensely of my children and my grandchildren. I'm intensely aware of my married life, of being a husband, being a father, a grandfather, of being a child of God in a fallen world. So there's a lot of things I write about. And I do mention world events like 9/11, and I do mention the war in Ukraine and presidential elections. But I don't look at my diary as a record, a historical record. It's more of a record of my spiritual life as a father, as a husband, as a grandfather. So anyway, so this is a Monday Reads. I do hope you have a good reading week. I thank you for your comments. Do pray you're all doing well. And yeah, so until next time. Yeah, my wife gets in tonight at 7. Hopefully she'll make it safe. So have a good week. Until next time, bye.